Well, 60 years ago this summer, the ground shook and the sky was ablaze here in southern Nevada. One after another, powerful atomic explosions rattled the Nevada test site just north of Las Vegas.
In fact, it was the most intense series of nuclear tests in American history. And among the artifacts that survived intact is a piece of World War II naval history that seems fairly out of place in the desert. The I-Team was allowed into the facility, and George Knapp is here with this exclusive story. George?
Now, this was a grim and tense era. The summer of 1957 saw one mushroom cloud after another billowing high into the sky. Between late May and early October, 29 atomic fireballs pierced the atmosphere of the Nevada test site. Staying ahead of the Russians was the primary objective, not historical preservation. But now, decades later, one historical mystery has been resolved by a physicist termed Gumshoe. The code name was Operation Plumb Bob. Atomic fireballs shredded the sky almost weekly. The security of the planet hung in the balance. These explosions obliterated pretty much anything within range, almost.
I think that's the right one.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is.
In the vastness of the still classified test facility, finding anything is a challenge.
That's it over there?
Livermore Lab physicist Rob Hoffman first saw the odd relic 2 years ago during a tour of the Nevada National Security Site.
Well, I thought it was a pretty funny looking trailer, as a matter of fact. But the closer I got to it, the more I decided, geez, that looks like something that might have belonged aboard a ship sometime.
Hoffman, who's from a Navy family, was right. It's a gun turret from a heavy cruiser. During World War II, heavy cruisers were often in the thick of the deadliest sea battles. So what's it doing in the desert of Area 2, in a spot that 60 years ago would have been battered by multiple atomic blasts? The barrel isn't a gun, it's a detection device designed to collect and analyze light.
The idea behind it was to try and figure out how well a nuclear weapon design actually functioned.
The turret was the answer to an engineering challenge. During Plumb Bob's frequent tests, test site workers had to build detection bunkers filled with equipment for each blast. They dug trenches, some 20 feet wide, 20 feet deep, and up to a mile long, for coax cable that connected to the detection gear. The trenches were then refilled to protect the cable from being vaporized. A contractor named Irv Woodward had the bright idea
that if he could make a reusable line of sight with something that could protect the detectors and yet be able to point at each of the devices as they were scattered around the site here, then they wouldn't have to lay so much cable, they wouldn't have to make so many special purpose bunkers, they wouldn't have to deploy as many instruments, and they might even save some money.
Yeah, you do, yeah, that is funny. And they laughed about it at the time, too.
Yes, they did.
Woodward and colleagues went to the Mare Island shipyard in San Francisco, found a couple of turrets sitting on a dock, and chose this one. It was transported south by ship, then was loaded onto trucks, and likely generated plenty of stairs as it traveled the new Interstate Highway 15 to the Nevada test site. It had to be modified considerably. The 8-inch gun barrels were removed, and the assembly was mounted on a foundation that allowed it to rotate 360 degrees.
This would be pointed at a device sitting on top of a tower, and then light would shine straight down through this tube all the way into the detectors, which would be housed inside the turret safely from the blast wave that was eventually going to get here from less than a mile away.
Diablo was the first, an atomic device detonated from a tower north of the turret, followed by Shasta to the south and Whitney to the west. In between, the turret collected data from the Smoky test, uncorked in Area 9, miles further away.
Worked like a charm. It was fantastic. Got great data out of it.
The turret survived the tests and the elements. Today, it sits in obscurity, home to ferocious test site termites and other curious critters. In the 90s, test site archaeologists collected information about the turret, but there was one big question that remained unanswered.
But they couldn't tell me what ship it came off of. And being a bit of a Navy history buff and from a Navy family, it just kind of caught my imagination.
In 1957, the supply of coaxial cable was very tight, mostly because of a blossoming industry at the time, a little business called television. So using a lot less of it made more sense. It took Rob Hoffman almost 2 years to figure out the name of the warship that was once the home to the test site turret, but he nailed it. And wait till you hear what this ship did in World War II. It's an amazing story that we will unveil tonight at 11.